So TPT, the Teradata Parallel Transporter, is a replacement for Teradata Warehouse Builder. Earlier, there was a tool called TWB. It was called as Teradata Warehouse Builder, where it can do all the operations of ETL related to building a warehouse. So that was called as a warehouse builder. Now it is renamed as Teradata Parallel Transporter by adding some new features, which can load the data and export the data to and from the Teradata RDBMS. And it is effectively a parallel load and export utility. The parallelism is more in terms of the utilities, okay, and utility sessions by using the TPT, Teradata Parallel Transporter. Some of the major characteristics include the high performance in terms of parallel exports and load operators, and data stream is eliminated, and so there is no overhead of intermediate storage and it is scalable. So what is this point? Data stream is eliminated. The data streams are eliminated and there is no overhead of intermediate storage. To understand this, let's take an example of the migration of one table from the production server to UAT server. What generally we do to migrate data from production to UAT? We may write an export script on production. So the export script will give you a data file where this data file is stored. If it is a network attached, then some Unix server. So the flat file will be stored on the Unix machine, and on the Unix machine it is occupying some space to store this data, right? And then you write some import script to load the data into UAT server. Okay, so this is all to be done, and intermediately you are using some persistent storage. Okay, on Unix server you are using some intermediate space to store that file data, even it is a flat file. Okay. If it is a mainframe, you may use some data set to hold the data temporarily on the machine. So if you use the normal utilities, the exports and imports, you are going to use the intermediate persistent storage. That means on the Unix space, or on mainframes, the mainframe space. Okay. That space is eliminated here in TPT, okay, with the concept called data streams. Sorry. Okay. So whatever space you are using on Unix servers or mainframes to hold the data in terms of files or data sets, you can eliminate that overhead by using the data streams concepts of the Teradata Parallel Transporter. We will see how it happens. Okay, and it is scalable. That means it can be enhanced. You can start writing a simple script and you can keep on adding the features, and you can scale the functionality of the particular TPT script, okay, to do more tasks. You can reuse the same script and you can add more functionalities. Okay. The parallelism. If you consider Teradata, we have the major characteristics called parallelism, and in TPT you will get end-to-end parallelism again. And it is an easy to use operator, single scripting language for all the utilities, whatever you want to use, and access to various data sources. So this is a significant feature again. The TPT can connect to all other RDBMS also. Okay, it may connect to SQL Server, you may connect to DB2, you may connect to Oracle through TPT and pull the data, and without using any intermediate disk files, you directly load the data into Teradata tables, or you export data from Teradata tables and load directly into Oracle. So the combination of these two features, access to various data sources, and there is no overhead required in terms of the persistent intermediate storage. What you do is you directly connect to other RDBMS, either export or import data from there, and either load or export from or to the Teradata RDBMS without any intermediary space of the operating systems. That is the major feature of TPT. Everything runs parallel, that's fine. Okay, so by using TPT you may connect two different RDBMS and you can do the operations without any operating system space or storage. Okay. And it is compatible with the third-party language programs. Okay, you may write some programs in C, C++, and can directly load or unload data from Teradata. So it is adaptable with the APIs, application program interfaces. And there are 4 types of operators what we generally use in TPT. So those types are called as producers, consumers, filters, and standalone. We'll see what is a producer. Producer is the kind of operator which will produce the data out of Teradata. Whatever action you do to pull the data out of Teradata is called as a producer. Consumer, it is just vice versa of producer. Whichever action you do to load the data into Teradata is called as a consumer. Okay. So what is a producer? Whichever generates data out of Teradata is called as producer, that is exports you can call it as. These are imports, okay, which are loading the Teradata RDBMS tables are called as the consumers. And we have the filters, okay, which will filter out the data either from producers or consumers. Okay, whichever the producer produce, it may be filtered by using the filter operators, that is the where clause or some validations, cleansing, whatever queries you use to filter out the data is called as the filter operation. And there are some stand-alone operations. It performs processing that does not involve receiving and sending the data. It is stand-alone. For example, we are using an operating system command like delete the file. So does it a producer or a consumer? Nothing. It is a stand-alone operation. It doesn't involve producing the data from Teradata or inserting data into the Teradata. So such type of operators are called as the stand-alone operators. Okay, so these are the segregation of the operators which we are going to use in TPT. Producers, which produce data out of Teradata. The consumers, which load the data into Teradata. Filters, which would filter the output of either producers or consumers, okay, which are required to do some cleansing power process and validation process of the data which is produced or consumed by the operators. And standalone, which are not involved in any production or consuming. Okay. And we have the segregation of all the operators in these 3 and in these 4 types. Okay. This is the table which shows you the segregation of each type of the actual operators. Okay. If you consider the first operator, SQL insert, okay, where we do the SQL insert, BTQ import, SQL protocol and inserting the data. You do insert in fast load also, but what is the protocol we use in fast load? that is fast load protocol. The mechanism is different, where it uses 64 kilobytes of memory and all the stuff. But here we say SQL protocol and insert. In which utility we do that, or which tool we do that? We take import. So when we are importing the data, the SQL insert is categorized under either consumer or producer. It's a consumer operator. The SQL insert, that means the BTech import task is categorized under consumer. Okay. And tpump, again, to load the data, right? It is stream based loading, where continuously it will load the data into active data warehouses. That is the purpose of the tpump. So what it does, streams the data and continuously load the data into warehouse. So does it a consumer or producer? It loads the data into Teradata, so it is a consumer. Then fast load, what it is? It also loads the data with the fast load protocols. That's a load operator, which invokes internally the fast load utility is a consumer operator. Okay, so these are the operator names what we use in TPT. These are resemblance. That means when you use this operator, what the utility internally called to execute and what is the category of that particular operator. This is the table actually. So how to read this table? These are the operators what we use in TPT scripts. These are the protocols used when you use these operators in the TPT scripts, and the type of the operator here. Okay. So now see, update is the operator what you use in TPT scripts, but when you use this update operator internally, it invokes the multi-load utility. And multi-load is basically a consumer because it loads the data into Teradata. Export, fast export protocol. Okay. Export is the operator name in TPT. Fast export is utility invoked, and it is the producer operator because it pulls data out of Teradata. Similarly, you can see all these things. The fast export out mode routine. Out mode routine is the program, okay, which consumes the data first and then exports the data out of Teradata. Right? So the out mode is a consumer. The fast export is a producer. But within fast export, if you use an out mode, it would become a consumer operator. And then SQL select, okay, which calls BTQ export internally. And as it is selecting the data out of Teradata and exporting the data out of Teradata, it is a producer. ODBC operator is the producer, where you connect through ODBC and select data from RDBMS. Okay, when you are selecting, that means you are getting data out of Teradata. It is a producer. And data connector. Data connector is for the external files or data sets. Okay. So when it is a file, what do we do with file? We load the data into file or we export the data from file. What operation we do with the file? We only use the file to export data into the file or to read the data from the file, or both. We do both, right, with the file. So data connector is to connect to the external file system. So when we use file, how do we use a file? Do we use it as a producer or a consumer? Both, because sometimes we may export data to the file, sometimes we may import the data from the file. So it is both. So there is no protocol because it is external file system. We call that operator as data connector. Whenever you want to connect to the data files, you use the data connector operator, and which can be used as both either producer or consumer. And fast load, multi-load, fast load in mode adapter. The fast load is a consumer, fast load in mode is a producer. Similarly, multi-load in mode is again a producer. The multi-load is the consumer because it loads. But in mode of multi-load would be a producer where it will do the pre-processing. Right? So these are the categories of operators and the related protocols which are internally called the type of the operator.
Manohar, could you tell the difference between in mode and out mode?
Okay. Okay. So what is an in-mode operator? First of all, these mode operators are the third-party language programs, okay, which will be invoked through the utilities before the utility either export or import the data. Okay, so for example, if you consider a fast load, what a fast load does, it imports data from data file to the Teradata table. Okay, so we have a file with some 10 columns. I wanted to load only 5 columns into Teradata table. Okay, you may declare remaining columns as fillers and you can do that, but I have to do some more pre-processing on the data before I load into the Teradata table through fast load. What I need to do, I need to combine the column 1 and column 4. Okay, I have to shift the column 2 to column 7 and I have to truncate the columns 8, 9, 10. So these are the things I need to do before I load that data to the fast load. How I can do that? Yeah, some pre-processing I want to do on the file, such as combining some columns, truncating some columns, or shifting some column positions, all these things. There's some more complex transformations, for example. If that is the case, what we can do, the file processing generally we do in third-party language programs like C, C++, Unix shell scripts, the PowerShell, all those utilities or all those programs, whichever you are familiar with. You may use some program to do the pre-processing on the data, and then the output of that program is used as input for the fast load utility to load into the Teradata tables. Okay. So these utilities have a facility where you can invoke such a program through fast load utility or multi-load utility or fast export utility. So before actually load or export, you can call that third-party language written programs and compiled, and where object code was generated to execute. With the executables you can call. The program executables you can call as this in-mode routine in case of fast load and multi-load. Okay, it will do the pre-processing of the data and which gives the input to the load utility here. So the in-mode routine would become the producer, which produces the data which will be consumed by the fast load utility loaded to load into the Teradata table. So what an in-mode routine would do, it takes a file as input and produces one more file which would be used as input to the fast load utility and consumes the data into the Teradata tables. Okay, so these are in-mode routines. And what is an out-mode routine? When you do export data from the Teradata table, okay, you are exporting some 10 columns, but before giving 10 columns, you want to do some encryption on some columns, for example. Okay? So you want to shuffle the columns after exported through fast export. You want to shuffle some columns or encrypt some columns, add some tags on some columns, some of the transformations. Then what you do, again you write a program in third-party language, you compile it, the object code and executable code will come, and this executable code you can invoke after exporting the data through fast export so that it will do some transformations on the file and will produce one more file. Okay, so that is called as a consumer in terms of out mode, where it is consuming the data which is coming out of the fast export utility. Fast export is a producer, it is producing the data, and this out mode routine is consuming the data and generating one more file. Yeah, that's where the fast export out mode would become a consumer and fast load in modes. Okay. Fast load and multi loads in mode routines become the producer. Clear now? Are you clear now? The in mode and out mode routine. What is the functionality?
Yeah, yes, Manohar.
Okay.
Thanks for the explanation.
No problem. Okay. And in the next screen you can see the parallel capability of the TPT. Okay, how all the operators and all the streams they operate parallel. So producer operators read the data from Teradata tables, okay, through queues, files, or relational database or non-relational sources, whatever. Okay, it reads the data, and after reading, okay, it will use a stream to load the data, and then some filter operations are performed if required in modes or where clause applies, user defined, any filters, any functions are applied, and then again load the stream with the data, and then finally it is consumed by the consumer operators, okay? And again this stream will be loaded into the Teradata tables. Okay, this is the relation of the producers, the filters, and the consumers, and in middle you see the streams. These are streams. Okay. And how the parallelism works, you may connect different sources with the different producer operators at the same time, and all the data which is read across different sources with different producer operators are streamed in a single data stream. Okay. And from this stream you may load different tables with different consumer operators. All are running parallel on the data stream which is produced by the three different producers. On all these consumer operators will load the corresponding tables. So finally the table data will be stored in amps. This is how all the operators would run parallel in case required. Different sources, different producer operator, or the same operator can be generated. They can be parallelly generated multiple instances. So all the instances of the particular producer operator run parallelly on the source, and it will fill a same data stream, and this data stream is used by different consumers and finally load the Teradata tables. So this is all the internal thing what would happen. Okay, we are not much bothered about how it happens. This is what happens if you write a TPT script and execute it. Okay, we'll see how we can make multiple instances of the same operator what we use in the TPT script. Okay, we can see how we can make multiple consumer operators of the same instance, multiple instances of the same consumer operator. Everything we'll see in the scripts. Okay. So to understand the scripts, we have to understand some prerequisite terminology, because the TPT script is not as normal as all other utilities, because it is developed on the object-oriented programming concepts, OOPS. Okay, so OOPS is the concept similar as RDBMS concepts. Okay, so based on the OOPS, the TPT scripting is discovered. Okay, so we have to understand some basic prerequisites to understand the actual TPT script. Okay. So to write any scripts, first we have to define the job, what we are doing. There is a defined statement for each and every job what we have to describe. So we have to define the job name and the description of the job, what it is going to do. Okay, and once we define the job, we have to define the schema of the objects. Okay, the data structure of the objects what we are going to use in this TPT script to load or to export. Okay, so once we define the job, we'll define the schema, and then we have to define the operators we use. What is an operator? It could be a consumer operator, it could be a producer operator, and the actual operator may be SQL insert or SQL export or stream or load or update, whatever operators you are going to use. So here you can see the operators, the possible operators. If you want to load the data, you may use fast load if the tables are empty, or you may use update if the tables are already populated. So these are the operators we use, but internally we remember these protocols. So we have to define the operators what you are going to use, either it is a producer or consumer, and what operator exactly you are going to use, either load or fast export, whatever. Okay. So for example, if I am writing a script, first I have to define the job name. So it is a user defined name, you can write anything, but you have to define it. Define the job name, and the description is the keyword, and you have to describe it within quotes, what action, what you are going to do. So here I am loading the employee table 2, so I just mention the task activity with the user defined words, load the employee table. Okay, so I have defined my job, and within the job we have to define the schema. Okay, it may be a file or it may be a table, whatever data structure. Sometimes it could be file, we have to define. Sometimes it could be a table, right? But table we generally don't define, as RDBMS has a specific structure, and when you connect to Teradata, it can get the structure. But if it is a file, it is mandatory to describe the file structure. Okay, so we'll define the schema. Input flat file schema, and the description of the schema, and the actual number of columns, column names, variables, and the data types. So here I have defined the schema of the data structure what I am going to use, and then the operator. So what operator I'm using? Define operator, operator name, and the description, again user defined words, and here you have to mention the type and the operator name. You will see in detail by assembling all these parts. So this is all the define section of the TPT script, where we define 3 different sections: the job level description, the schema level description, and the operator level description, what we are going to use in this particular TPT script. And then the executable statements in the TPT. Now we know in multi-load, in TPUM, the executable statements are with the apply. Similarly, in TPT also, we have an apply and the DML statements. We will assign it to an operator, which is defined in the operator section, load operator. Where it is defined? Here, the load operator. And here we mention whether it is a fast load or multi-load. Here it is load. Load means what operator? Load means what operator it invokes, or what utility it invokes. Load means fast load. Okay. So it uses 3 instances of the load operator. That means 3 fast loads would be invoked in parallel. Okay. And select star from operator data connection. Okay, what is the data connector here? The file. So from this file connector, it will open 3 instances of the file and loads the data into the fast row. Insert into the employee table through the operator, load operator, which is the load operator, and select star from the data connector. Data connector is the file here. Okay. From the file, the 3 instances, it will read the data, and by using the fast load operator, it will load the data. Okay. So these are the prerequisites. Okay, we have to understand the define and the executable statements. Okay. Now we'll try to understand one actual script, a comparison of a BTech with a TPT. Okay. So here the actual task is to build a table called source employee table and then load 2 rows into the table. So this is the task. How we'll write a BTech script to do this operation and how we can write a TPT script to do the same operation. To compare how different the TPT script is than the remaining utility scripts. So here I'm comparing the TPT script with the BTech, where the task is to create a table and insert 2 rows. Okay. So if I write a BTech, how I do? First I will log on, then I may mention a default database. I will create a table and I will insert the data. First row, second row, quit, log off. Okay, this is the simple way of writing script. Okay, leave about the exception handling, all those stuff here. Just to achieve the functionality of creation of the table and to insert the data, this is the simple script what I can write through BTech and can achieve it, isn't it? Okay, log on, create the table, insert the data. That's it. But here in the TPT, if you want to implement the same functionality, you have to follow the whole procedure. First, what we need to do, we have to define the job name, and describe it. And after that, we have to define the schema, okay, or the operator first here. Here, we define the operator, the DDL operator, and description is something, some user defined keywords. And what is the type of the operator? DDL. And attributes for this script are the connection string. Okay, to perform the DDL, what should be the prerequisite? We have to have the logon credentials. So we have to mention it like this: attributes, the varchar of TDP ID, varchar of username DBC, varchar of user password DBC. Why we have to mention like this? As I mentioned, it is all the object-oriented programming. Everything is considered as a class and object, where we define the class with the different constructs and the variables and data types, and then we instance each and every object for each class. In a similar way, here we have to define the class and objects. So attributes we have to mention for this type of DDL, and then we have to write the apply. So within the apply, the SQLs what we want to execute, the DDL operator. Okay. So all these SQLs are aligned to the operator, DDL operator. So where it is defined, DDL operator. So DDL operator, which will log in with these credentials, will execute or apply all these sequence. Okay, so this is a bit complex to understand, and obviously it is complex to write also. If we are not able to understand, it is difficult to write also. Okay, but this is the way. In TPT, the scripts are written. Okay. The object-oriented programming style is adopted here in TPT, where it is a bit complex to understand and to execute or to write. So we generally don't write TPT script from scratch like this. What we do, we use a TPT wizard. So as they also know the complexity of understanding this program and writing this program, they have created a wizard for us. So we use that wizard step by step. We just mention what table you want to load or what table you want to export. What is the RDBMS source, what is the structure, what is the file name, everything will mention in the windows, next, and then finally it will create you the script where you can execute it. You will see that later. But here, before seeing the wizard, here let us see and let us put some efforts to understand the scripts, so that at least after wizard creates you the script, you can see and understand what the functionality is. Okay. So to achieve a simple functionality of create table and insert, we have to write this code here in TPT. We have to define the job, we have to define the operators, we have to define the attributes here, and then apply the SQLs through the operator. Yes.
So even to log on to the script, we have to define this object.
Yes,
like
everything for every task, because everything is an object here. Okay, to log on, what are the credentials we have? All those things would become attributes of the logon object.
Okay, this is local TID, DBC, and DBC is so that's one object attributes of the object DDL operator.
Yeah. Okay, so if you are familiar with that object-oriented application, you can understand it. Otherwise, don't break your heads to understand this. Anyway, we are going to use the wizards. Okay, so if you understand the object-oriented programming, everything is an object, and within the object we have the attributes. In a similar way, we have the DDL operator as an object here, and within the object we have these attributes. Okay, we are going to use this class object here with the 3 instances of maybe. Okay, here it is 1 instance. You can put 3 instances of DDL operator where you can invoke 3 instances of this object. So apply is the action what we have to perform on these objects. So let us understand one more script. Okay, it would be easy. Load script. When I say load script, what is the script? What is the protocol used when I use a load operator?
Consumer, right?
That's the type of the operator. What is the operator?
Fast load.
Fast load.
Load is fast load. Here I have shown that, right? Yeah. Load is fast load. Okay, so we are going to see a comparison between the load operator in TPT, how we write a simple script. Okay, so first here we define the job name, and the description of the job, and then we'll define the schema of the file. Define schema name, the description, and the schema of the file. That is number of columns, data types, and the variable names. And then defining the operator. Define operator, load operator. So this is the name, and description. This is a defined name, and here you have to mention what is the type of the operator. It is a load. Okay. When I say load operator, do I need to mention it is a consumer or producer? When I say load, it is always what type?
Consumer, right?
Load is always consumer. Okay, so I no need to mention it is a consumer when I say the operator is load. Okay, so I don't mention, it is default. When I say load operator, it is a consumer. So that's why I didn't mention consumer here. Otherwise, I should mention consumer. Type load consumer. But consumer is default here when I'm using the load operator, which invokes the fast load utility. Okay. And the schema used is the star. That means which is defined above. and the attributes for the fast load. What are the possible operators, the attributes what we use for fast load? We use all these statements: the tenacity hours, the buffer size, the error limit, the connection, the host name, username, password, the working database, the target table to be loaded, the log table, error tables, everything. Do we mention all these things when we write a fast load somewhere? If you don't write, it will take the default values, but we have to mention all these things if you write a fast load script, isn't it? Do you need to mention all the error tables, log table, target table, logon ID, logon password and username? Everything would become an attribute here when you use the load object. Okay, for this load object, okay, what schema it has to use, and what are the login credentials, what are the work tables, target tables, error tables, log tables it has to use. Everything will become an attribute. And then we'll define the operator.
So what is the meaning of star there? Schema star?
Schema star. So whatever schema defined in this particular script, it will use that schema.
Okay. So this, okay.
The input flat file schema you have defined here, we are using that schema to load the data through the fast load. Okay. And here you have to define the operator data connector, where we have to give the attributes of the file, because we are using the load operator, so it expects a data file, where this data file exists, okay, what is the mode of that file, what is the format of this file, everything we have to define somewhere. So where we define in an operator called data connector. Okay, so data connector is the operator where it can enable us to give the file details. Okay, the description of this operator is the data connector operator. Okay. And what is this type of data connector here? Data connector is the operator name. You know we have a data connector operator, right? So here data connector is an operator which is used to define the files. Okay. And what type of it is? Both. So it can be used as producer sometimes, it can be used as consumer sometimes. But here in this case, when you are using a load operator, what is the type of data connector? Are you going to use it as a consumer or a producer? Because load is a consumer, we have to produce the data to it, right? So we have to use producer category of data connector to give input to the load consumer. And the schema, what schema it uses? The input flat file schema. And what are the attributes of this file? The file existence. Okay, at this path the file exists, and it has to open in a read mode because we are reading the data, right? And the format is the formatted format, and the mode is indicator. So all these things we have to define at the file place, the file attributes. Okay, so up to here everything is declarations. If you observe, okay, we have defined the job. Within the job we have defined the schema of the file, okay, and define the operator, the load operator with all the attributes, and then define the data connector with all the attributes. And now we are writing the executable statements, the apply. What to apply? The actual import statements of the fast load. The actual import statement of the fast load utility, and then we are invoking the load operator with 3 instances. What is the load operator here? Here we have defined. So in the load operator we have invoked the fast load utility Okay, so we have to invoke 3 instances of this load object. Okay. And what is the input for this load operator? Select star from the operator data connector. Okay, so whenever you have the apply statements, okay, one tip from my side is when you start this apply, you start understanding it from reverse. Then you can easily understand. Okay, whenever you see the apply, just start understanding it or start reading it from the bottom to up. So first it will select the data from the data connector. That means it will read the data from the file and then load the data into the table. Okay, so this is the functionality of the fast load through the TPT script. Okay, where we have all defining sections. Then finally the apply statement where we have to go read from bottom to up to understand it well, very clear. It selects the data from the file and loads the data into the table by using all the attributes what you defined in this operators. Okay, when you read the data from data connection, it knows from which file it has to read, what is the format of the file, what is the mode of the file, what is the schema of the file. Okay, input file schema, that means this input file schema. So these are the variables you have to use to read the data. So with this statement, it can understand everything about the file and read the data in this format schema, and then insert into the table with the load operator 3. So load operator means the load, that means fast load, and within the fast load these are the attributes. So how to log on, okay, what are the tables to be used for intermediary purpose, the error tables, log tables, everything is known. So it will execute the import state. This is how to write a fast load script in TPT. So TPT is the superscript of all the utilities. Whatever utility you can use, and it is a uniform style of writing scripts. Whatever utility you use, this is the method you have to follow. You have to define them and then apply them. Similarly, one export script.
So when we say the load operator is 3, right? So 3 means it works parallelly?
Yes.
3 instances?
These 3 instances would run parallel. That's what the feature of TPT at the first slide we have mentioned. Parallel export and load operators eliminate sequential bottlenecks. So all the 3 fast loads would run parallelly with an end-to-end parallelism. Okay. So all the 3 instances, whatever we mentioned, they will run parallel. And here let us understand the fast export. Okay. So similarly, we define the job, we define the schema, okay, and then define the operator. Which operator here it is? Export. When the operator is export, what is the utility called and what is the type of it?
The fast export, right?
When I call export operator, it invokes the fast export protocol and it is a producer. So when I say export, do I need to really mention producer or it is a default? It is default. Because whenever I say export, it is always a fast export, or it always produces the data. So it is a producer. So I no need to externally mention it is a producer. So I just mentioned an export here. Yeah, and schema to be used as the employee schema. This is the schema. And the attributes of the fast export. Yeah, the fast export should start with the log table and host name, username, password, and the statement to be used for the fast export. And the select star from the table, whatever data you want to export through the fast export. That is also an attribute here. If you observe, The export object has the attributes for the logon, and it has an attribute where you have to mention the select statement also. The attribute name is select statement stmt, select stmt, and we have to assign this select statement attribute with the query which is to be used to export the data, and define the operator file writer. So file writer is a connector operator, right? Data connector. And here the data connector is a producer or consumer. We are using the export. So for export, the data connector would be either consumer or producer. It is a consumer here, right? So which consumes the data, which is exported by the fast export. So here we have to explicitly mention what is the type of the file you are going to use, because whenever you use data connector, it can be used in both the ways, either consumer or producer. So we have to mention whether you are using it as a consumer in this situation or not, or producer. We have to mention it explicitly, consumer. Okay? And schema is the schema which is already defined, employee schema. Okay? The file structure is this. And attributes of the file. What are the attributes of the file? The log name and the file path, and the format of the file, binary, and in which mode we have to open the file, because we are exporting the data into the file, so it has to be open in write mode. And indicator mode is yes or no. If it is Y, indicator mode, otherwise normal mode, record mode. And then apply. So when you have apply, you start reading the script from bottom to top, bottom to up. So it selects data from the operator, export operator. What is export operator? Here, export operator. That means it invokes the fast export with this all attributes and selects data from this particular employee table. And whatever data is exported from this is written on the file writer operator. So file writer, which gives the path of the file, the mode of the file, the format of the file, everything. Okay, so it reads the data from the table and writes the data onto the file.
Manohar, why the indicator mode is equal to n?
You don't want an indicator mode here, so it is record mode.
Oh. Oh.
If you want to export it in indicator mode, then the value of indicator mode will be Y.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so this is a simple export script to understand.
So here we are using only one instance.
Yeah, here we are using one instance. You can write
So
2 or 3, so that you are invoking 3 instances of the export operator object. You can mention this number. You can control the parallelism here by mentioning the number.
we can write any number of instances.
Yeah, the limit is again common. How many fast exports, fast loads and multi-loads I can run parallelly?
30, right?
Multi-loads, fast loads and fast exports together?
60.
60.
Yeah.
Okay, and how many load, the fast load and multi-loads I can run together?
30.
30. Okay, how many fast exports I can run at a particular time? What is the formula?
30, right?
60 minus
Total.
60 minus the total active load. Yeah. So everyone remember, the fast exports formula is 60 minus the active load slots, that is multi-loads and fast loads.
Okay.
The same thing would apply here also in TPT. And the best part of TPT is we are not going to write the scripts from scratch like this. Okay? So there is a wizard where you can use this wizard, a GUI based Windows application, to generate the scripts, where you have to point what is the source, what is the destination, what are the operators we are going to use. Okay? So these are the inputs to the TPT wizard, and TPT wizard will generate the script, will submit the script, and if you want to modify it, you can modify the script. All the operations will do through TPT wizard. Yeah, but I see some accounts are using TPT, but they are not using the wizard. Okay, so some basic scripts are already generated as templates, and they're asking the developers to configure that script by changing the job names or the table names or file names. That's it. Okay, they are not using wizard. Maybe wizard is a different license setting. So they have created some template scripts, and they're asking the developers to configure or to modify as per their requirements. Or maybe in future you may use the TPT wizards also to generate the scripts. Okay, so once the script is generated, you can submit it and you can modify it there in the wizard itself. Otherwise, at the prompt, if you want to execute, these are the commands you have to follow. tbuild is the command. For fast load, how we execute at the prompt? What is the command to execute fast load at the prompt? Or fast export? How do we execute fast export at the prompt? In the batch mode? Anyone? Okay, how about BTEC? How do we execute BTEC at the prompt? The executable statement.
BTEQ.
Yeah,
BTEQ.
BTEQ. Okay, what is the command for fast load?
Fast load.
Okay, what is the command for fast export?
FEXT.
What is the command for multi-load?
MLOAD.
Okay, what is the command for TPT? tbuild. Okay. The command what you use at the prompt to run the TPT script is tbuild. Tbuild with all these possible options. Okay, -F to specify file name to be used as input. The script name, if you want to pass to tbuild, you have to use -F. Okay, -U to specify the job variable values, okay, which are to be applied. If you use some variables and you want to pass those variables from the command line arguments, you can use -U. Okay. -S specifies job execution should start at a specific job step. It is a restart, and if you want to mention from which step onwards it has to start, you can mention -S. -Z is for specifying the checkpoints. -P specifies that attribute should be read from an external file in the support environment mode. -L specifies latency and how often to flush the buffers. -N specifies a job should continue even if error written code is greater than 4. Like this. Okay, if it is required, you may use several options with the tbuild command at the command prompt, and you can control the script. Okay. So let us try to see a simple wizard script. Okay, this is the Teradata parallel transporter wizard, which is installed on your Teradata demo version. If double click on this, okay, so first time if it is not invoked, you have to install the Java runtime environment, a minimum of latest version, so you install at least 1.7, the Java build, in case if it is not invoked in your machine. Okay, so we have to install the Java runtime environment. Just Google it, you will get some version, update with the latest version, so that you will have this wizard appear for you. Okay. And you can create a job. Okay. So it is the new item. These are the existing jobs for me. If you want to create a new job, just click on this menu item, job. Yeah. It will ask you what is the job name. Just mention it is some export data or something, and description, export data from retail customer something. Yeah. And then character set, platform default, leave it as default. Otherwise, if you are very specific about the character set, you can use any possible character set, ASCII character set or UTF, EBDC, okay, kanji. Leave it as default if you are not specific about the data sets, the character sets. Click on next. In the next window, it will ask you what is the source type. So we want to export the data. So what is the source for this? Teradata. If you want to export data from Oracle, you can write it as Oracle. Okay, so you can connect to different RDBMS also, either Oracle, DB2, SQL Server, whatever ODBC is installed on your machine, it will show you the possible DSNs. So you can connect. So here now Oracle is not installed for me. I have Teradata as a source where I am exporting data from Teradata table. So what is the host? Local TD, username, password. Do you want to include your user ID in the generated job? If you want, yes. And then it will ask you for the password. If you want to include the password also in the script, if you want, yes. Otherwise, if you want to make it confidential, just uncheck it. So password is not displayed in your script. Okay. So it will try to connect to this host machine and it will fetch you all the tables in that machine, local TD, by connecting with the user ID and password. Okay, you may connect with local TD, TD user and TD user. I have connected with the administration password here, DBC. So it has connected to the local TD machine and has given me all the databases which are there. So I can select what the data I want to export. So this is the retail, and within the retail I want to export data from customer, our favorite table, which I have populated with my data. And you can mention the number of instances. 3 instances you want to use for a fast exporting. You mention it. What all columns you want to export. Select all the columns, whatever you want to select, and then next, and destination. Okay, we have defined up to source now. Now where we need to export the file, export the data to a file. Or if you want to move data from one table to table, yes, you can do it. You can mention Teradata table here again and mention a table name so that it will load data from table to table. If you want to export into a file, you can mention a file. If you mention a file, it will ask you the path, the directory name, C:/number 12, the file name, TPT out. So it will ask you if file already exists, you want to append it or truncate it. Let us create it for the first time. What is the mode you want to use? Format mode, binary mode, text mode, unformatted mode. Okay. Let us use it. Formatted mode. Delimiter is default pipe. Indicator mode. If you want indicator data or record data. If you want to preserve the null values or not. I want to preserve the null values, so it is indicator mode. And next. It will show you the source details and the destination details. Just see and confirm it. If everything looks fine, you check a checkbox here, run job now. If you want to only create the script, you uncheck it. But if you want to run the job also after creation, just check on this run job. Yeah. Our job name is export_data. Okay, finish it. See, this is our file export_data, and this is the script which is generated. See, define job, export data, description, define operator, It used its own naming convention, and all the variables are filled for us. The schema, I have selected only the cust name from the table, so it has given the schema that the file will be exported with cust name, and define the operator. What operator it is? Export operator. The schema to be used as export data. Export data is nothing but this cust name. Yeah, and the attributes of the fast export, block size, accounts, whatever. Yeah, everything is default. And apply to the operator. When I say apply, it will start reading the data by using the username dbc. So source password, because I made password as confidential. Okay, so user password is not displayed here in the script. And select statement. Yeah, it selected only the custom to be exported. Okay, local TDP ID is local TDP. Yeah, and then it will apply the operator with these attributes to where it has to export the file. Formatted data, write mode, indicators, yes, text delimiter, like. If you are okay with this, just give a job name, export data. If you want to give any checkpoints, retry limit, latency intervals, you can give that, and then click on OK. The job is being started. See the icon here, the job is running now. Okay. It's trying to connect the database at the runtime. The main step terminated, status 8. So there is some error. The number of instances exceeds the number of amps. We have given number of instances as 3, whereas only 2 amps available in the demo version, so it was not able to process. Okay. So how we can change it? Select it, edit it, go to that part where you mention the instances. I'm trying to fetch all the databases. Okay. One instance, everything is same. Finish it. Give a name. It is in run status. Trying to connect because we made the password as confidential, so it has to ask at runtime. See now, the total file processed 1 and export data 1 completed successfully. So where the file is stored? See November TPT out. So let's go to that folder and see if it has been created. See, oh, it is in host machine. So in the XP machine we have to check. My computer, see November 12 TPT out. Open it with notepad because we didn't give dot text here. That's where we're not able to understand what format it is. So we open it with the notepad and see. Here's the data in indicator mode. Like this, you can use TPT wizard to generate the script. You can see the complete script here, the tab job script. So this is what we have written to export one column from a table through fast export. It seems complex, but this is standard across all the utilities. So that is one advantage where it applies the object-oriented programming concepts, and it can connect to different data sources, and it eliminates the intermediate persistent data storage devices in the process of migrations.
Manohar, as
Yeah.
part of this script generation, you gave instances number, right?
Yeah.
Initially we and then later we changed to 1.
Yeah.
What is the advantage? It is to speed up the load or something?
Yeah.
What is the advantage of the
So let's suppose I have 1 million data, and if I use one instance of fast load, let's suppose it is taking 10 minutes. If I use
Okay,
three
yes.
instances, it may take 3.3 seconds or 3.3 minutes.
Okay.
So
So
parallelly,
all
all
these
three
three are
instances will
going
execute.
to be, all these are going to write to the same output file, whatever we specify.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
Manohar, like using this tool, we can directly use the database tables or flat files. Correct? Like yesterday, suppose you specified like the case study, you have written so many conditions. All the stuff we can't simulate in TPT, correct?
Yes, we can. We can write. So whatever utilities we are using, the BTech, everything can implement it in TPT by writing the code. Okay, you may not be writing everything through the wizard, but you have to configure it. Okay, after creation of the script, you have to put your functionality in the scripts, which is auto-generated.
Okay.
Okay, so this gives you the basic structure.
Okay.
So if you want to include some more functionality, you can add it manually. So that's
Suppose
where
if we want to do yesterday's the case study, then we have to do some things using this TPT, and remaining we have to write out manually, correct?
yeah. So whenever you are exporting, you export the data with the BTQ export. Okay, what is the operator we are using for BTQ export? So we have to use those operators. BTQ export is SQL selector. Yeah, define those attributes.
Okay, okay.
And use it. Yeah. And when you are loading the files with update and insert indicators, use SQL inserter.
And in one script we can use two operators.
Yeah, a number of operators. And in the apply statement, you mention the sequence. What operator to be executed what at what time. The apply sequence, you mention the sequence of the operations to be executed.
Okay.
Manohar.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the first part of the tool you showed, right? I was disconnected. Like, is there any way can you send the recorded session